talking anyway. Right? So I will start, Scott. I'll just say boa tarde, and you can say good afternoon, would be easy. And then I continue.
Bom dia.
Boa tarde.
Oh, is it?
Boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I'm going to say boa tarde for you, and you just repeat that.
What's bom dia? Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boa tarde.
Tarde. Yeah.
Okay.
Tarde.
Oh, tarde. Okay.
Yeah.
You could ask a question. Why do we think innovation is important?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, right? Or what I think. Anything new? New trends in innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so play the
Olá, pessoal. Boa tarde. Boa tarde, Scott.
Boa tarde, Enio.
Scott's practicing his Portuguese. Obrigado pela presença de todos. Essa vai ser o primeiro de uma série de webinars em preparação ao curso que nós vamos ter em parceria com a Uninter, aqui em Boston. O curso se chama Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program. Alguns detalhes sobre o programa antes da gente começar o nosso webinar. O programa vai ser em Boston, numa universidade chamada LaSalle College, uma escola bem interessante, uma universidade bem interessante aqui na região de Boston. O período vai ser de 22 a 28 de julho. Vai ser um conteúdo bem focado em empreendedorismo e inovação. Então, o perfil dos participantes são desde empreendedores que querem melhorar o seu negócio, mas também pessoas que querem empreender, até pessoas também que trabalham em corporações e querem inovar dentro das suas empresas. Como eu disse anteriormente, o período é de 22 a 28 de julho e o investimento é de $2.200 até 15 de maio. Depois disso aumenta mais um pouco. As aulas vão ser durante uma semana e vai ser bem interessante porque é uma combinação de aula, visitas às empresas, conversa com o pessoal do ecossistema aqui de Boston, mas também muito interessante em termos de network. Então vocês vão ter muito acesso não só a alunos e professores aqui da região de Boston, mas a vários empreendedores que podem trazer muitas conexões importantes para o negócio de vocês. Mais informações sobre o programa vocês encontram no site da Uninter aqui nos Estados Unidos, que é www.uninterusa.com. Bom, resumindo para quem entrou agora, a gente vai ter um primeiro webinar sendo entregue pelo professor Scott Sargis, que vai ser um dos professores do programa que a gente está fazendo aqui em julho, em Boston. É um programa de empreendedorismo e inovação. Aqui falando um pouco do Scott, o Scott tem uma formação muito interessante. Ele é formado em negócio, em direito e também em engenharia. Então ele tem essa visão bem global que ajuda muito ele nesse processo de consultoria e inovação. O Scott vai falar um pouco hoje sobre inovação, mas basicamente é uma amostra do que o Scott vai estar entregando aqui na semana que vocês vão estar aqui em Boston para os alunos que vão estar participando. Bom, o curso está confirmado já, a gente já tem 80% dos alunos inscritos. Queria agradecer ao Scott. Scott, thanks for your participation. Scott, as I mentioned before, will be one of the professors delivering the program in Boston. So, Scott, all yours.
Okay, great. Thank you, Enio.
I hope you understood some Portuguese.
Some of it I did. So I've been around enough Brazilians in my brief time here at IEC that I can understand a little bit. But thank you everyone for taking the time today to listen to a little bit about what we have to say around innovation. We've got a very exciting program that we want to offer to each of you later in the summer. I'm particularly excited about this because I've been involved in the innovation world for a very long time. It's changed dramatically since I got involved, and the rate of pace and change is only increased since you can just go back to just a short period of time ago. So we're now entering what we would consider the sixth phase of massive innovation, sort of all around issues around sustainability, but really around disruption, around the way that new ideas can really just change society. If you go back to the industrial age, you go back to mass production, you go back to innovation and technology, those were all massive platforms for innovation, and we're still living those, and there's more to come. So what we want to do today is just give you just a quick snapshot, just a taste of the kinds of discussions that we would have as part of our program here outside of Boston later on this summer. So what we'll do is give you just a deep dive, although not very deep because I have such a short period of time, but to give you as much of an immersion into what this would look like as possible. The program that we've talked about today is one of the modules that we would have as part of our program. We call it quantum innovation. What it means to me anyway, and many people have different interpretations of it, it means how to look beyond where you are, or in other words, what's the journey around the corner. We see what's in front of us, but where innovation happens is in ways that we don't see, but we know from history, we know from knowledge, logic, data, that there is a different being, a different situation, a different set of environmental conditions around the corner, and we want to take you through that in a different kind of very interactive way. One of the things I'll do today is run through some examples, and we would do this much more extensively as part of the course, and actually invite each of you as teams to come up with your own way of thinking about quantum innovation and applying it to a business or a certain situation that you may have. So if you would just come with us around this journey, it will take you through what it means to be involved with quantum innovation. What we want to talk about today is one of the things that's critical for us is being very attuned to what's going on in the market. We call it what we're hearing in the market. What's the market telling us? What are we detecting? What are we deciphering? So being conscious of what's going on in the market is one critical agenda as part of quantum innovation. What is quantum innovation? What does it mean? We'll talk a little bit about that today. Talk about some examples. We've got some that we've developed over the course of our experience here at IEC Partners, and we'll go through a little bit of that, give you some real examples of some of the work that we've done, and then how to get started, how you can think about thinking innovatively in a quantum perspective coming out of this brief session, but even more so during the course over the summer. And we'll take some questions, and we'll have some questions that we can help you with at the end. So if you're ready, let's get started. So first, let's talk about what we're hearing, and how do you think about that? How do you think about what is going on in the world around you? So here's what we tend to hear, and here's the kinds of conversations that we are having with lots of people within our network, lots of our customers, lots of our clients. People are asking, where is their unseen competitive disruptor? So if you think about the classic example that we use all the time is Uber. It's a very easy example. If you were a taxi cab owner 5 years ago, you had a certain perspective around the future, and it doesn't look like it is today because of Uber. And Uber is a great example of a disruptor coming in and completely taking over an industry. We're also hearing about what it is that's outside our clients' comfort zone. Too many times we find that companies feel familiar and comfortable with what they've been doing, and they want to stay there. They feel like going outside of that starts to inject risk and perhaps even cannibalize their business. And so they want to know what is going outside of that because they're focused on what's going on day to day. Tell me what I don't know. in many cases, that's how we start a conversation with our clients, and that's what they end up asking us, which is, what's going on that I don't know that I should be knowing. And going back to the Uber example, they're deathly afraid of being Uberized. So what is that out there that's sitting right at the cusp, right at the corner, right around the corner, I should say, that provides some very highly competitive disruptive forces to them? So one of the things that we talk about, by the way, is we put this in many cases in a biosphere, or what we call a new sphere, set of environments, a set of conditions. So in the biosphere, we talk about that being a disruptive change sparked by a superhuman event. So things like typhoon, or things like a volcano eruption would be a case of environmental conditions creating a superhuman event that's creating lots of change in the biosphere environment. In the new sphere environment, which is the universe of ideas, what is the critical factor, the spark that's creating a destabilizing effect in business models that our clients have currently adopted? So, for instance, in the case of Uber, one of the things that happened was the adoption of smartphones. So the mobility of computing power in the hands of humans, in the hands of individuals, really was the destabilizing effect to the legacy industry, the taxi cab, and they still haven't caught on in many cases, but it created a chance for Uber to leap ahead. To use another example, so for instance, Starbucks. One of the things that Starbucks has done really to make themselves disruptive is for the use of mobile payments. They've really been an early adopter of that. Again, not to say that mobile computing power is the only thing that changes conditions that create a destabilizing effect, but those are just two very good examples where it does. So we want to inject in our conversations, we'll inject this into the classes that we run, but we also inject it into our conversations with our clients and our people in our network, is talking about a different point of view. How do you think about this effect differently? And so we talk about it not in terms necessarily about their fear, those we've established. Now we go in the other direction, which is, what would the world look like if you adopted a premise of quantum innovation or an innovative platform? So, for instance, what if you could imagine staying ahead of your competitors and your disruptors? How do you put yourself in a position where you are a leader of the pack as opposed to a middle of the pack or lagging in the pack? How do you engage your team around innovation? In many cases, this is an organizational dimension that you really need to pull people together and get them all on the same page. And that's got a critical bonding effect, but it also has a strategic impact as well. How do you bring the competitive forces into your domain so that they are both helpful and instructive in terms of where you might want to go? And how do you do this according to a time frame that your organization can adopt and can put into action? So strategic implementation is a critical component to this. So as I mentioned, one of the things that we talk about is this notion of quantum innovation. And quantum innovation is a term, not that we've made up, it's been out there, but it's a term that I think injects two elements. One is disruption and change. The other, the quantum side, is how to do it at scale, how to do it in accelerated form, how to do it using a big-minded format, big picture format. So one of the key elements of quantum innovation is this notion of what I call alchemy. Alchemy being the product of a chemical reaction, or the power generated by a chemical reaction when you bring two or more technologies applied to a business model or maybe an industry. So you can think of it a bit of as a mashup. Maybe that's a more current term, or term that those that are in the younger generation might appreciate. So it's when you pull two or three disruptive forces, two or three technological platforms, two or three different concepts together, and put them in a way that you can inject into the world, into the society, into the business community that has real impact. So in the case of Uber, for instance, many people think of Uber and the disruptive force that they have principally around the way that the customer experience has been changed by Uber. So if you think about it, you order your car very easily on your phone, you track its progress, you identify who it is, you pay in advance, it's very seamless, and it's a very pleasant experience. However, the real critical factor for Uber's success has less to do with that and much more to do around the fact that the other side of the equation, meaning labor management, is much better, it's a much more competitive advantage for them because the labor becomes more of a gig economy-based labor or a on-demand-based labor. Ironically, today is the day that Uber is going public, and so there's all these workforce displacements or workforce disruptions around Uber drivers. So it was an interesting topic for me to pick today because of that. Having said that, Uber needs to figure out a way using disruptive technology, frankly, to help address that. But they've already got their or they've already advanced the notion of Uber being one of quantum innovation because they've addressed the labor management from a very disruptive way. So Uber is a good example of quantum innovation of having two separate forces come together, or two separate forces engage in a mashup to create a whole new business model or whole new business experience that has really put traditional transportation industries at risk.
And they want to add more, right? It's called self-driving cars is another example of things that they're trying to bring to Uber.
Exactly. So, right. So they're taking this notion of customer experience with either labor management. So your example is a good one, because they started out with labor management as in drivers, but it's supply supply and demand. So now they've got sources such as food or such as healthcare, elderly, or situations such as transportation monitoring. So they've expanded this notion using the Uber model, and it's gone even beyond, or can go, it's going even beyond where it's going now. So again, we look at quantum innovation, at least initially, as a platform in which your team can start to feel engaged on the topic of innovation, and so they can start to see what the world might look like beyond what it looks like today. And so not only does this have great power from this perspective of the type of outcome that might occur, but also is a great platform to pull your team together. When we run quantum innovation workshops, what we know is that our clients, their teams, automatically or immediately feel more innovative or in a more innovatively empowered way just by going through a quantum innovation workshop, because it just injects a heightened degree of different ideas and different outcomes based on a mashup type of perspective.
And regarding the Uninter students, you can apply that if you're working in a corporation, but also if you want to start your own business, right?
Absolutely, right. Many of our companies that we've seen have used this concept. Whether they know it or not is maybe a little bit different, but they've used this concept as the catalyst for starting a business on their own. So let's talk about a little bit about the quantum innovation in practice. Frankly, this is one of the fun parts for us. We enjoy this immensely because what it does, it spurs all kinds of different thoughts and different conversations, different ideas from our clients and from our students that we start with. So here's one that we find that is just terrific. So we're just going to run through a couple of examples here. The one that we identify in this case, we call it fantasy football meets healthcare reimbursement. So here's the idea upon which is the premise of this quantum innovation or QI example is based off. So more and more of us are wearing Apple Watches, Fitbits. I've got one on now, and we're tracking much more data around our health, our activity, our sleep patterns, our food intake, our weight, our body mass index, all kinds of things. So the data around our our health profile is increasing beyond what we ever thought it was before, and I don't think we've even scratched the surface yet. So there's lots of data that's going around how you are conducting yourself from a health standpoint: nutrition, exercise, sleep, etc. At least here in the United States, I'm not sure exactly how it works. Well, I know how it works in other parts of the world. I'm not sure exactly how it works in Brazil. Is healthcare is principally provided by someone's employer. So it's a benefit that you receive when you join a company and get employed by them. You can go out in the market and buy it separately, but for the most part, 90+% of healthcare programs here in the U.S. are employer provided. And that's going through some complete disruption now from a policy standpoint here in the U.S. in terms of how Congress and the president are addressing that. So that's another factor here. So you got data profile through Fitbit and Apple Watch. You've got healthcare reimbursement going through a sea change. And then the last one that happens is there's all kinds of disruption going on in the financial services arena. One of the ones that's most critical, or most current, I should say, is this notion of peer-to-peer lending. So peer-to-peer lending is a democratized form of ways for you to participate in lenders loaning money to individuals based on certain categories, certain profiles, etc. So one example of peer-to-peer lending is that you could contribute 25 or 50 US dollars to this fund. This fund would help to provide loans to professors that are buying cars, because there's a certain credit risk profile associated with that category for that particular asset loan. And so there's many examples of where peer-to-peer lending falls into that category. But it's all democratized, which is a complete disruption that occurs out there. So if one were to take a step back and think about how to engage all three of these technologies together in a mashup. So what would happen then if you were to say that I know what Enyo's health profile is because his data is available to me, and instead of having his employer pay for his health care, I will go through a peer-to-peer lending platform, and I want to contribute to that platform, and I want to pay for Enyo's health care. And what I can do by that is, knowing the data, I can know that he's committed to a workout program. I can know that he's committed to healthy eating, and I know the investment that I'm going to make in his healthcare is only going to increase in its return to me, because he's not going to use the healthcare system beyond what would be normal, because you're doing all the right things in terms of your healthcare.
And you have data to prove it.
And I've got data to prove it. Mm-hmm. So now everything gets disrupted here. There's all these Blue Cross Blue Shield healthcare providers that start to get disruptive. The peer-to-peer lending platform takes on more prominence. Now your Fitbit becomes even more critical to your day-to-day living, and the valuation that has in the market goes up. So it's very much as if you were thinking about this from a fantasy football perspective, if you guys know what that term is. And I'm going to say that based on the data that instead of Enyo being on the soccer pitch, that he's now going to be telling me what he's doing from a workout standpoint, mm-hmm. and I'll bet on him. He'll be part of my team. So that's just one quick example of quantum innovation in
practice. We have a similar website in Cartola in Brazil that's for soccer, not football, but similar.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just one example. Let me run through another example where this isn't necessarily technology-based, but is business model-based, which is equally as interesting and as important to us. Although there is a technology component. There typically is. So let's say that for those of you that have siblings that are teenagers, maybe you are one, maybe you're a parent of one. One of the things that happens, at least here in the U.S., is you get to a certain age and you get your driver's license. And every parent is petrified about the performance and the conduct that their teenager would have in driving a car.
That's universal, I think.
I believe it is.
But here in the U.S., it's 16
Correct.
In US, in Brazil, it's 18.
18, yeah. So here it's 16. So, and so I remember when I was growing up, my dad said to me, kind of poked me in the chest, waved his finger and says, don't ever exceed the speed limit and always use your blinker. And that was a contract effectively that we had together. I can't say I always adhered to it, but that was our contract. Now, there's data. So now you can plug these devices into your car through one of the ports, and there's data that gets generated about the performance of the driver while they're driving. So again, you can have that contract with the teenager that says, as long as you perform according to the data profile that we set up, I'm going to reward you, and I'm going to reward you in an interesting way. So
who's rewarding? Is the insurance company or the parents?
Well, here's where it gets interesting. I'm going to go there in a moment because the business model is completely fascinating. Let's just start with the parent. So the parent says, I'm going to reward you. Every month that you perform according to the terms of the contract, I'll give you, pick a number, $10, $20 a month. And I'll do that because for me, as a parent, that is short money. I'll do that all day long, and I'll be tracking their driving performance. Now, in addition to that, I could say that I'm going to also contribute $10 a month to your retirement program, which in the U.S. is a big deal. And if you start to contribute $10 a month at 16 years old, by the time that you're 55 or 60 years old, that is a massive amounts of money, even if you stop contributing when they turn 20 or 25. And so now you've pulled in the financial services people because it's almost impossible for them to establish a relationship with a 16-year-old. But they'd love to because once you do that, then you have an opportunity to service them for life. So now you've got a built-in customer base from a financial services standpoint. Now, to your point, Ennio, so you could stop there, and that could be your business model. Mm-hmm. But the insurance company would likely do some underwriting and determine that the chances of there being a claim go way down if the teenage driver conforms to the contract and gets the incentive. So cash goes to the kid, to the child, cash goes to the retirement account. The insurance carrier will likely say, I'm going to reduce your premium by amount maybe equal to the amount that you're contributing because my claim record goes down. And the highest claim history is with teenage drivers. Mm-hmm. So again, a little bit of technology, but a complete change of business model.
Win-win for everybody, right?
Win-win for everybody, correct. Except for the teenage driver that wants to rebel.
Yeah, but they
get
to be rewarded. Right?
They like cash better than rebellion. So that's the logic there. Uh-huh. So again, this is more business model than it is technology, but a very fascinating quantum innovation program that we ran. And then one other one, which we find very fascinating. This came up based on a conversation that we had with a client who is the world's largest almond producer in California. And sorry for the GIF, you may get a little dizzy by that, but it involves rail transportation. So what happened was back when the price of oil was very high, over $100 a barrel, he couldn't get the rail car's attention to ship his products back to the eastern part of the United States. What happens there is that rail cars are designed to operate in lengths of between 100 to 200 cars, which is it's almost like a hub and spoke system. So it's very logistics driven because you're traveling so many cars in the same direction, and then you decouple when you get to a certain point. And he could the rail companies couldn't afford to break their cars up because the oil companies had such a demand. So what we did for him was we pulled his team together and we came up with a different approach. It wasn't to be implemented because they didn't control the rail cars, but it made their team feel more innovative. So what we came up with is some ideas. In fact, they did a lot of this, which was what happens if we use driverless rail cars, because labor is a big component of the cost of moving rail around the country. and you shorten the length of the train system to maybe 20 cars. Now you've got much more flexibility. It's not as complex logistically. Not only that, but you reduce the environmental hazards. So if you have a train derailment, the chance of the derailment occurring goes down because you've got less cars, and the catastrophic effect goes down because you've got less cars. So a 20 car pod is less susceptible to derailment than a 200 car pod. Then we went to one more, which is the scheduling and the routing has traditionally been based on logistics. If you could figure out a price optimization, and there's ways that you can do this, so that when you pull into a port or into an offload station, as soon as you hook up the offload station, that's when your price gets set. Well, you typically do that as soon as you can because you're paying for that. You could set up your logistics system differently, so you may hold back on a 20 car pod, wait for the price to meet where you want it to meet, and then offload. Even though you may be paying for that offload station in the meantime, it's short money compared to receiving the price increase. So just an example again of taking different technologies, mashing them or merging them together, and coming up with a different kind of solution, a different kind of outcome. And these are, I can assure you, very, very fun to do, very fun to talk about, very fun to engage with. You would typically, we would have you run through several of these as part of the course during the module, and come up with some different ideas about how we want to teach you more about how to do this. It's a very fun exercise. So again, for you that want to maybe get an early start on this, how would you get started with quantum innovation? And to do that, it's fairly straightforward, not all that complicated, but we've got a process. So first of all, you got to talk to who your customer is, who your client is. In fact, in many cases, we would recommend going to the next part of the chain, who their customer is, and what challenges are they being faced with. So, for instance, I'll go back to the Uber example. You the customer, or your friends as customers, survey them. What is meaningful and impactful to them, and how would that be injected into your thinking around this? Second piece is what kind of analysis can you conduct to determine the types of technologies that are out there that would be candidates for being injected into the quantum innovation. And sometimes you're going to think about things that are very different than what you might think about. In other words, smartphones always typically are part of this, but they don't necessarily have to be. For instance, in the teenage driver, that was not smartphone related. That was a different type of technology. So, and then coming out of that, what are the recommendations that we might generate coming from that? It's very much of a brainstorm exercise, but it's a brainstorm exercise really without limits, and we push the boundaries even beyond those that are fairly limitless. So it's a great way to, easy to get started, and a great way to have some pretty fun conversations. So with that,
we're going to open to some questions.
Yeah, so I think so. Right.
Let's see if we have any questions. I'll ask one, Scott. In the meantime, if companies want to enter, Brazilian companies, for example, want to enter U.S. market, how important is innovation for this process of entering U.S. market?
Well, so that's a great question, and it's one in which we've thought about a lot. It's one that we've got a lot of experience in, and I would answer it the following way, because it's what we know to be the case is as follows. So, being innovative takes on a lot of different meanings, and so ways to be innovative. So first of all, you have to be innovative. You have to have a compelling value proposition that goes beyond what your competitor is doing. Mm-hmm. And here in the U.S., it's a very competitive set. So you've got to be innovative in some dimension of your business that is attractive to a customer and outcompete your competition. So that's number one. Now, how you define innovation from that context is completely different or is subject to a wide degree of variability. So there's ways that you can be innovative in terms of your customer support. It could be innovative, obviously, in terms of your product. It could be innovative in terms of your customer experience. You could love your customer beyond anybody else, and that becomes an innovative difference for you. So you have to be innovative for sure. How to think about innovation is not necessarily the way that people typically do, because they typically think about it as product innovation. It can be beyond that.
And with your experience working with a lot of Brazilian companies, can you give us a little bit of flavor in terms of, is innovation coming from more US, more different, like Israel is very famous for important innovation case, but how about Brazil? Can you share a little bit with the audience here from Uninter?
Sure, yeah, so...
by the way, one of companies that we work with was eBanks, and eBanks is from Curitiba, that is where the headquarters of Uninter is.
So eBanks, great example of innovative technologies or innovative approaches. And again, that was very much a business model platform for innovation. So here's what we believe is truly the source of innovation. Innovation occurs where there are one of two things or sometimes both. Either there's what we would call friction or where there's gaps. Gaps meaning that there's a space and a need that's being unmet that an innovative, different, forward-looking solution can solve. Friction, on the other hand, is a bit of the opposite, where there's a scenario that exists for which it's not satisfactory. Friction is because I'm not happy with what's going on, and so there's a better way to do it. This situation can be improved upon. So what we find in companies that are outside the U.S. is that there is wide degrees of innovation, that they have to be innovative because they have a different scenario, different set of conditions than we have here in the U.S. or there are in other countries. So during the economic crisis in Brazil, there's gaps. There's openings that exist for people to fill in with innovative solutions. Those innovative solutions can be imported here in the U.S. And where you have friction, where you've improved a situation through a frictionless platform or product or ways that addresses the friction, there's also an ability to import that in the U.S. So I think Brazil, Israel, parts of the Middle East, Africa do have a good source of innovation.
And there are some specific things that these countries go through. Like, for example, in Brazil, we had really high inflation during many years, and that was great to develop technology in Fintech, for example. Right. That's where eBanks is coming from, right?
Right.
There's another question coming from Hugo. It's coming from Facebook. Do you believe quantum innovation is a superhuman event? How does it impact companies?
So, great question, Hugo. So, quantum innovation...
And questions coming from Facebook, that's something that's innovation.
Right? Yeah, exactly, right, exactly. So Facebook has, and frankly, you folks have adopted Facebook, recognizing the innovative platform. And by the way, because of your involvement there, it's making them even more innovative. So obviously Facebook is one of the more innovative companies that are out there. So is quantumation a superhuman event? Depends on how you define superhuman. I believe it is. And I say that because it's certainly based on human intervention, human thought, human set of conditions. But you have to, for you to think really differently and push the envelope, you have to go outside the boundaries of your typical thinking, and that becomes more of a superhuman type of event. And how does it impact companies? In lots of different ways. So, anyway, so thanks for the question, Hugo.
Well, thanks, Scott. I think we're going to stop here. If you have any other questions, feel free to send through the channel that you're watching. We will get back to you. And maybe now we do a quick summary, Scott, about the program, and then we open to some possible questions for the summer program. So again, for people that join us a little bit later, I'll switch now to Portuguese, so it'll be easier to communicate with the group here. Então, pessoal, só para... Obrigado novamente pela participação de vocês. Para as pessoas que tinham interesse mais na parte de Quantum Innovation, mas não tanto interesse no programa de verão, fiquem à vontade de voltar à rotina aí de vocês. Mas é claro, vocês são bem-vindos aqui e continuar com a gente enquanto a gente adressa um pouco essas dúvidas sobre o programa de verão. Então, para resumir para as pessoas que não estão aqui desde o início, esse é um programa que a gente está fazendo em parceria a IC Uninter e a LaSalle College aqui em Boston. É um programa de uma semana que vai ter um mix de aulas e visitas e network events. Então, é uma combinação de professores de várias universidades. Temos professores formados em Harvard, professores que deram aula em Suffolk University, professores que deram aula em Babson College, que vão estar participando, vão ser os professores de vocês durante essa semana. O investimento desse programa é $2.200 até dia 15 de maio agora, e basicamente está tudo incluído nesses $2.200. Então, a parte de alojamento, a parte de todas as refeições, transportes para as visitas, tudo está incluído. É claro que sempre é bom trazer algum dinheiro extra para vocês aproveitarem as atividades extras à noite ou compras, etc. Bom, isso vai ser em julho, onde é verão aqui em Boston, né, o oposto do Brasil. Então a média de temperatura aí está em torno de 30 graus. Então vai ser um evento espetacular. A gente faz isso há muitos e muitos anos e estamos muito felizes aqui de criar essa parceria com a Uninter, e através da Uninter é a primeira vez que a gente está fazendo esse programa. Bom, algumas perguntas que estão surgindo aqui nos canais Facebook, por exemplo. Quem é o público desses programas? Então, é um programa para os estudantes da Uninter, basicamente, que estejam aí querendo começar o seu negócio, já tenham o seu negócio e queiram crescer crescer o seu negócio. E o outro público são pessoas que trabalham em empresas, em corporações e querem inovar dentro das empresas. Deixa eu pegar outro tipo de pergunta. Aqui, se pode ser parcelado. Nós temos parceiros que vão estar fazendo, inclusive a empresa que o Scott deu o exemplo, a Banks, que é nosso parceiro na parte de pagamento, existe parcelamento que pode ser feito. O preço é de $2.200 até dia 15 de maio. Deixa eu ver se tem mais algumas perguntas. Então, como é que são as aulas durante a semana? Então, como eu mencionei anteriormente, é uma mistura de aulas, sala de aula, onde vocês vão ter vários tópicos interessantes relacionados a empreendedorismo e inovação. Vamos ter várias visitas a empresas, sempre ligadas a empreendedorismo e inovação, então incubadoras. Vamos estar visitando várias universidades também, então a gente vai estar visitando Harvard, que é bem famosa aqui na nossa região, MIT, que é outra escola de tecnologia muito interessante aqui na região, e vários outros lugares que estão na agenda do programa. Aqui embaixo, eu acho que vocês estão vendo, mais informações sobre o programa vocês encontram no website www.uninterusa.com. Não quero me alongar muito, mas fico aqui então à disposição para qualquer dúvidas. Entre em contato com a gente, ainda temos vagas para esse programa de julho. Qualquer dúvida, nós estamos à disposição e queremos ver vocês aqui em julho desse ano ainda. Bom, só para finalizar, Boston é uma região muito interessante aqui dos Estados Unidos. A gente tem inúmeras universidades, talvez a região que tem a maior PhD per capita do mundo. Então, os brasileiros têm muito essa cultura de Miami. É uma região muito interessante também, mas em termos de educação, aqui é o berço de várias empresas, como Mark Zuckerberg veio da Harvard, vários outros empreendedores grandes vieram de universidades aqui da região. Bom, eu não quero me alongar mais, estão vindo várias perguntas, eu prometo que respondo a vocês em outros canais, mas agradeço a presença de vocês. Como eu mencionei anteriormente, esse é o primeiro de vários webinars que nós vamos estar fazendo, e aí, se vocês quiserem mais informações, nós estamos à disposição. Muito obrigado, pessoal. Thanks, Scott.
Obrigado.
Um abraço, gente.